The moment you ask for intimacy, you've already lost it. This brutal truth has destroyed more connections than rejection ever could. Most men beg with their eyes before their lips even part, and she feels it instantly. But there's an ancient method buried in the darkest corners of human psychology that flips this entire game. By the end of this, you'll understand why not asking is the most powerful request you'll ever make. Stay until the final principle. It changes everything. Every signal you send screams louder than your words ever could. Your body betrays you the moment desire takes hold. Your voice shifts pitch. Your posture leans forward just slightly too much. Your eyes lock on with an intensity that feels almost hungry. And she catches all of it. Not because she's judging you, but because thousands of years of evolution wired her to detect a man's emotional state within seconds. This is where most men lose the game before it even begins. They walk into a room already defeated, not by their looks or their bank account, but by something far more fundamental, their energy. A desperate man carries a weight that others can feel. He takes more than he gives. He needs validation the way drowning men need air. And every woman's subconscious registers this truth before her conscious mind forms a single thought about him. Think about the last time you wanted something so badly you could taste it. Remember how your hands got slightly clammy, how your thoughts raced ahead to the outcome, how your whole being oriented itself toward that one thing. Now imagine broadcasting that energy to someone you're trying to attract. You've just handed them all the power. You've made yourself small. You've announced, without saying a word, that your happiness depends entirely on their response. This is why the nice guy finishes last. This is why you've heard, "I just want to be friends," from women who seemed interested minutes before. This is why doing everything right still leaves you alone at the end of the night. The problem was never your approach. The problem was never your conversation skills. The problem was the invisible frequency of need vibrating beneath everything you said and did. Here's what nobody tells you. Wanting something openly is the fastest way to push it away. The universe operates on a strange principle. Chase, and it runs. Stand still, and it comes to you. Your hunger, when visible, becomes repulsive. Not because there's anything wrong with desire itself, but because exposed desire shifts the entire dynamic. It puts pressure where there should be ease. It creates obligation where there should be freedom. It transforms a dance into a transaction. The men who succeed with women aren't the ones who want less. They're the ones who've learned to contain their wanting, to let it exist without letting it leak. Their desire stays internal, controlled, almost invisible. And paradoxically, that containment makes them magnetic. Because when a man seems complete without you, when his happiness doesn't hinge on your answer, something shifts. Suddenly, you're not being chased, you're being chosen. And that difference changes everything that follows. Here's the chase you've been running your whole life, and it's been pushing her further away with every step. That burning desire in your chest, that urge to move closer, to text again, to make your intentions clear, it's the very thing destroying your chances before you even open your mouth. Think about water for a moment. Try to grab it with a clenched fist and it slips through your fingers. But cup your hands gently, stay still, and it rests there effortlessly. Attraction works the same way. The tighter you grip, the faster it escapes. When you pursue openly, something shifts in her perception. You become the one who needs, and need is the death of desire. She doesn't consciously think, "This man is beneath me." Her body decides it for her in milliseconds. Evolution wired her to sense a man's frame before he speaks a single word. Your eagerness broadcasts itself through micro-expressions, through the way you lean in slightly too much, through that subtle quickening in your voice when she laughs. Now flip this entirely. Picture a man who enters a room without scanning for targets. He moves with purpose that has nothing to do with anyone's approval. He engages with different people, genuinely absorbed in conversations. He seems complete, like the universe already gave him everything he needs. When he ends up near her, it happens naturally, not strategically. They talk, he's warm but not hungry, present but not attached. Then he does what 99% of men cannot do. He walks away first. Not coldly, not as a game. He simply has a life that calls him elsewhere. That exit rewires her brain. Suddenly, she's asking questions she never asks. Who is this man who doesn't cling? Why does his attention feel different? That wondering is where attraction takes root. This isn't about pretending to be busy or manufacturing fake distance. Perform indifference while secretly desperate, and she'll smell the lie underneath. Women read subtext better than men read headlines. You cannot fake completeness. You must build it. Your mission, your craft, your growth, these create genuine fullness that radiates without effort. When your happiness genuinely doesn't depend on her response, a strange alchemy occurs. The pressure vanishes from every interaction. You stop needing any particular outcome because your identity doesn't hinge on it. This energy walks into rooms before you do, and it makes everything that follows 10 times easier. The paradox cuts deep. You must care about connection while releasing your grip on any specific result. Stand still in your own completeness. Let her wonder. Let her come closer, because the space you hold invites her rather than demands her. This is where power lives, not in the chase, but in the gravity of a man who needs nothing. Here's a moment that will reshape how you see every interaction. Think about the last time you truly wanted something, a goal, a person, a dream. Remember how alive you felt in the pursuit? Now recall the moment you finally got it. That fire dimmed almost instantly, didn't it? This isn't coincidence. This is the fundamental architecture of human desire, and once you understand it, you hold a key most will never possess. Satisfaction is the death of wanting. The very second you close the gap between craving and having, the magic evaporates. This is why lottery winners spiral into depression. This is why achievements feel hollow days after the celebration ends. And this is precisely why most men destroy their chances at intimacy. They rush toward resolution like it's a finish line, never realizing the race itself was the prize. The approach matters infinitely more than the arrival. The journey doesn't just lead to desire, it creates it. Skip the journey, and there's nothing meaningful waiting at the destination. The experience becomes forgettable, empty, like a meal eaten too fast to taste. Now, tension operates on 3 distinct levels, and mastering each transforms you into someone unforgettable. The first level is physical, but not in the way you imagine. You don't touch to escalate, you touch to understand. A brief moment of contact during laughter, then you pull back and observe. Does she lean closer? Does she find reasons to be near you? Her body speaks a language her words might hide, and you're simply learning to listen. The second level runs deeper, verbal tension. This isn't about clever lines or stating what you want directly. That kills everything instantly. Instead, you master implication. You say one thing while another meaning hovers beneath the surface, unnamed but felt. You might tell her there's something about how her mind works that feels dangerous. What does that mean exactly? She won't know, but her mind will keep searching, keep wondering, keep returning to you. The deepest level is psychological, and this is where true power lives. It exists entirely in her mind. When she replays your words looking for hidden meaning, when she thinks about you long after you've gone, when she cannot quite figure you out completely. You become an unanswered question, and the human mind is obsessed with unanswered questions. We remember unfinished conversations more vividly than completed ones. We're haunted by puzzles left unsolved. Here's the truth most never grasp. The moment she believes she fully understands you, the tension dies. But when she senses there are depths still unexplored, layers yet to discover, that's when curiosity transforms into something far more powerful. That's when you stop being an option and become an obsession she chose for herself. Every woman alive knows what it feels like to be wanted. Men want her in the streets, in her messages, at work, constantly. Wanting is the cheapest currency a man can offer. It costs nothing, it means nothing, and deep down she knows this. But being chosen, that's something else entirely. When a man wants a woman, he sees her surface, the face, the body, the obvious appeal that any stranger could notice.
When a man chooses a woman, he sees beneath all of that. He sees her mind. He sees her contradictions. He sees the version of herself she hides from most people. And that distinction creates a feeling so rare, so intoxicating, that it bypasses every defense she's ever built. Think about what being chosen actually implies. If you chose her, that means you considered others. You had options. You weighed possibilities. And after all of that, she won. Not because she threw herself at you, not because she performed for your attention, but because something in her depth called to something in yours. This satisfies a hunger that lives in every human being, the need to feel singular, not attractive, not desirable, irreplaceable. When you communicate selection, you're telling her unconscious mind that she matters in a way that goes beyond her appearance. Now, here's where most men destroy this completely. They try to communicate selection through words. They say things like, "You're different from other women," or "I've never met anyone like you." And it lands with a thud. Why? Because it sounds rehearsed. It sounds like something whispered to 100 women before her. Words are weak carriers of this message. Actions speak it fluently.
You communicate it by having a life that clearly doesn't revolve around her or anyone. A man with no options cannot choose. He can only hope to be chosen. But a man whose attention could go anywhere, when he focuses on her, that focus means something. You communicate it by noticing what others miss. Not her dress, not her smile, the specific way she phrases an idea, the hesitation before she reveals something personal, the quirk she thinks no one catches. When you comment on these things, she feels genuinely seen, and that feeling creates more intimacy than any physical touch. And critically, you communicate it through contrast. When she says something that genuinely interests you, lean in completely. When she says something ordinary, respond ordinarily. This tells her your attention isn't free, it's earned, and she's earning it. Worship destroys this instantly. Agreeing with everything, validating every word, showering her with constant attention, that's not selection, that's desperation wearing a mask. Selection requires discrimination. You can't choose everything. The moment you do, the choice becomes meaningless. Every rejection you've ever faced had one thing in common. You asked directly. You put her on the spot, forced a decision, and watched the magic evaporate into awkward silence. The problem was never her answer. The problem was the question itself. When you ask for something directly, you create a courtroom moment. Yes or no, accept or reject. Her rational mind wakes up, starts calculating risks, weighing consequences, wondering what others might think. And the rational mind almost always says no, not because she doesn't want to, but because the risk feels too heavy when the spotlight hits her face. Here's what the masters understood centuries ago. You never ask, you invite. A question demands an answer. An invitation opens a door and lets her decide whether to walk through it. One creates pressure, the other creates freedom, and freedom is where desire lives. Think about the difference. Saying, "Come back to my place," puts the weight on her shoulders. But describing the view from your window, mentioning the book you've been lost in lately, talking about the music that fills your room at night, now you're painting a picture. You're not asking her to step inside, you're letting her imagination wander there first. If she's interested, she'll find her own path through that door. She'll suggest it herself. And suddenly, it becomes her idea. This is the psychology most men never grasp. When she moves towards you because she chose to, there's no resistance, no second guessing, no morning after regret about being talked into something. She owns the decision completely. And what we own, we protect fiercely. The language shifts everything. Instead of declaring what you want, you use conditional words that acknowledge the tension without forcing resolution. You might say something like, "You're making it very difficult to behave right now." You're communicating desire without demanding response. You're letting her feel the electricity without asking her to grab the wire. There's a darker technique within this, the power of almost. You move closer,
but stop just before contact. You hold the gaze a second longer than comfortable, then look away. You create the moment everyone expects to complete, and then you leave it hanging. Her brain craves completion. When it doesn't come, the tension multiplies. She starts wanting the resolution more than you do. She begins closing the gap herself, not because you pushed, but because you created a space she needed to fill. This isn't manipulation. This is understanding that desire cannot be commanded into existence. It can only be invited. You create the conditions, set the stage, open the door, then you step back and let human nature do what human nature does. The ones who want to enter will enter, and they'll thank themselves for making the choice. Most men try to convince women with words. They argue, they explain, they make their case like lawyers in a courtroom, and they fail. Because desire was never born from logic. It rises from somewhere far deeper, a place words cannot reach directly. The human mind has a peculiar weakness. It cannot distinguish between thoughts it created and thoughts it received. When an idea enters subtly enough, slipping beneath the walls of conscious awareness, the mind adopts it as its own. Advertisers have exploited this for decades. Politicians have built empires on it. And the greatest seducers in history understood it instinctively long before science gave it a name. You do not plant desire by speaking about desire. You plant it by speaking around it. You describe the quality of silence between two people who truly understand each other. You mention how certain music moves through you late at night when the world goes quiet. You paint the feeling of connection without ever naming what it leads to. Her imagination does the rest, and imagination is infinitely more powerful than reality. In imagination, there are no consequences, no risks, no social judgments, only the pure feeling of possibility expanding. Environment shapes thought more than we admit. Dim lighting slows the racing mind. Soft music opens emotional doorways that remain locked in harsh fluorescent spaces. Warmth relaxes defenses the body doesn't even know it's holding. Privacy removes the invisible audience we all perform for. These are not manipulations, they are conditions that allow what already exists to finally surface. Desire hides when it feels unsafe. Remove the danger, and it emerges on its own. There is another channel, subtler still, emotional association. When she laughs, you are present. When excitement rises in her chest, you are nearby. When pleasure of any kind touches her experience, you become linked to it. Over time, her deeper mind stops separating you from those feelings. You become the source without ever demanding to be seen that way. You positioned yourself correctly, and nature did what nature does. But hear this clearly. You cannot manufacture what was never there. These methods reveal attraction. They do not fabricate it. If genuine connection does not exist, no technique survives contact with reality. She will sense the emptiness beneath the surface, and everything collapses. This works only when something real pulses between you, when mutual interest already breathes but fears to show itself fully. The transfer is not about taking, it is about creating space where her own desire feels safe enough to speak. You are not convincing her of anything. You are removing the obstacles that kept her from convincing herself. When the idea of intimacy becomes her thought, resistance dissolves completely, because no one argues against their own conclusions. Every technique you've learned means nothing if your inner world remains unchanged. Here's what separates the men who transform from those who stay stuck forever. Most men treat psychology like a toolbox. They reach for tricks when needed, apply strategies like formulas, and wonder why nothing ever clicks. Women don't respond to techniques, they respond to essence. They feel who you are beneath every word you speak, beneath every move you make. If desperation lives inside you, no clever line conceals it. If neediness sits at your core, no strategy masks its scent. Character is destiny. You cannot escape what you fundamentally are. The laws I've shared aren't manipulation tactics to pull from a bag. They're natural expressions of a certain kind of man. A man who stands complete, a man rooted in his own ground, a man who walks into any room already whole, needing nothing from anyone to feel worthy. So here's the shift that rewires everything. Stop asking yourself how to get her attention. Stop calculating how to get her desire. Stop scheming how to get her to say yes. That frame poisons you from the inside out. It turns you into a taker, and takers repel everyone they pursue. Flip the question entirely. Ask instead, how do I become more grounded in this moment? How do I become more present with whoever stands before me? How do I become complete without anyone's validation filling my empty spaces? This frame transforms everything because it points inward where real change happens. When your worth lives inside you, anchored in your own standards, your own growth, your own relentless development, rejection loses its teeth. And when rejection no longer devastates you, desperation evaporates like morning fog. The moment desperation disappears, these principles work on their own. You don't perform controlled presence, you embody it. You don't manufacture tension, it radiates naturally. You don't fake selection, your full life demonstrates it without effort. Build yourself into someone whose existence doesn't depend on any single outcome. Pursue your path with intensity that has nothing to do with impressing anyone. Develop skills that challenge you, chase goals that excite you, create a mission that burns whether she watches or not. This isn't theory, this is the foundation everything else rests upon. The 5 principles reach full power when you genuinely don't need them to work. Read that again. When you've built genuine abundance, internal, unshakable, real, attraction stops being something you chase. It becomes something that flows toward you like water finding its level. You stop performing and start living. And in that living, in that fullness, everything I've taught you tonight becomes effortless. Not because you mastered tricks, but because you finally became the man these principles describe.